Hello everyone. Welcome to the Art Lounge Alley. This is Figure Drawing Basics Part 98. And I am your host. And I'm going to jump into today's lesson. Which is where we left off yesterday. What you're looking at here is a continuing lesson about how you could use the block form to understand different parts of the body, whether it's the hand, whether it's the rest of the torso, or other parts, any part really. You could use these simple shapes to start out. It's really useful more so for beginners, for people who are just learning, to make it easier for them to understand these features. You know, it could be intimidating when you're starting to draw something complex like hands, to know where the limits are when it comes to, let's say, the width of the hand, right? Or the depth of the hand. You know, those are things that once you understand three-dimensionally, once you have it more solidified in your mind's eye, you're able to draw it out. You're not going to be depending so much on just random lines and hoping that it'll look right. You know, that you'll intuitively sort of be able to draw them out properly. That leaves way too much uncertainty in the process. You want to get to a place where you really understand all the features as they are, and really understand like the laws, basically the laws of physics, right? The laws of our limits when it comes to our body, our physique, and all that other stuff. And to do that, you could do it by using something more simple, not complex lines. So and as you could see, it's also really useful when it comes to foreshortening, meaning objects in perspective. You know, whether it's top down, whether it's bottom up, whether it's more from the side of each one. You know, I'm going to use this as an example. You know, this is more of like a profile view of it. But, you know, if you wanted to, let's say, have it at a 3/4 angle, being able to draw the head in the same manner is, you could also use the box form for that as well. And that's an example that I gave before. I'm just going to quickly show you guys once more before continuing on with the lesson. And this is what I'm referring to. As you could see, you could use the box, and similarly, I drew like basically a building as well. It's just I think it's in some ways a good metaphor for even just constructing the face. You know, you do want to start out with something more simple, which is the box form, which allows you to understand the planes. You know, the front planes, the side planes, that sort of perspective. And the same way as when you're starting to build a building, you want to make sure that you set the parameters, you set the beams, right? You want to have the skeletal structure down first, the blueprints down first, before you start getting into the detail, before you start laying on the bricks, before you start designing the interior of the building. You know, you want to make sure that everything is going to fit properly, that you have enough bricks, right? That sort of thing. So in the same respect, when it comes to figure drawing, you want to make sure that first you set the parameters. You want to make sure that it's as big as you want it to be, depending on like what you're working on, right? Let's say if you're working on a smaller paper, you don't want the head to be way too big if you're planning to draw the rest of the body. You also don't want the head to be too big if you're trying to fit it within a panel, a frame. So by using these basic shapes, by you know, putting down these beams basically before you get into the details, it allows you to do that. It allows you to just restrict it within the area that you intend it to be in. And again, it leaves less room for guessing games, for it to be like, oh, let's hope that by the time I start with the detail in the forehead or the eyes and I get to the neck, that everything is in a place that I intended it to be. So you want to be a little bit more in control over your drawing and the outcomes of it. I think a lot of people have this impression when it comes to art, when it comes to illustration, that it's all very intuitive. Now, of course, there's people who are like that, but that isn't the only approach that brings you results, which is essentially what you're working towards. At least that's what you should be interested in. You know, I think some people go into it for the title because they want to be seen as something special, or they want to be seen as something interesting, or whatever have you be it. But the real intent should be that you're interested in the art, in the process of drawing, in the process of developing something. That should be the number one goal in the forefront. You know, if you're doing it for other things, you're not going to enjoy the process as much, because what you're really looking to enjoy is the glory of it. You know, the fact that people are going to recognize you in a certain way, whatever it is. So it's important for you to really get involved in the process itself, really enjoy it, regardless of how people perceive it to be, whether it's supposed to be intuitive process or if you're starting out more technical or whatever. The goal that you're working towards is to have the ability to just express yourself and to be able to create stuff from your imagination, to enjoy something, you know, because you essentially did start out enjoying the process itself. So I think it's important to just shed that expectation, to shed those perceptions or expectations of like, oh, if I'm not intuitive enough, then that means that my work is no good and I'm going to get nowhere. It couldn't be further from the truth. And yeah, you want to start it with a healthy mindset, which is, I really like to draw. You know, I really like to paint, or I really like to play music, and just stick to that as much as possible. Regardless, you might get attention, you might get opportunities or whatever. You don't want that still to taint this idea that you love the field. You love to draw and paint or whatever it is, and have that be your motivation to continuously get better and improve, to discover new avenues when it comes to the art field, new capabilities, you know, to level yourself up. So yeah, just highlighting again, how you get there, how you get to that point isn't as important. You know, whether it's more intuitive or more technical or whatever it is. So anyways, getting back to this, yes, it is a technical approach to the process, but you'll recognize eventually that you have such a good understanding of limitations, of precision when it comes to certain features on the face or any other part of the body using this method, that you could shed those training wheels and you could start doing it as intuitively as you imagined it. But first, you got to learn these rules. Now notice here, talking about these rules and laws when it comes to our physiology, as you can see, because it's a 3/4 view, because it's within this box design of a 3/4 view as well, all the lines, guidelines, are parallel to each other. So the line for the eyes is parallel to the lines of the eyebrows. The lines of the eyebrows is parallel to the planes of the forehead, you know, this section right here. And as you can see, this other section starts to present as a new plane, you know, so you got the front of the forehead, and then you got the top of it that's kind of angling more to create this curvature. You know, it's not just straight up, it's starting to curve and bend a little bit. So that's what this plane is right here. And then once you're there, you could see, okay, well, here's the limit for it. And this is the part where things start to fold over from that cheekbone. It starts to curve, as you can see here, it starts to curve inwards, or downwards rather, in this perspective. And And just to quickly touch up on this, this is clay. This is something you guys can purchase. It's not expensive clay. There's like a block of clay, I believe. It's at most, I'm going to say $20. I don't even know where it is now with inflation, all that crap. But you can get this, and if you dedicate some time on working on this, you will have a model. So let's say it takes you a week to do this, right? And you really put in a lot of time. If you're not planning to get into clay, or if you absolutely hate it, let's just say, you still gain something from it that's permanent, a model. You're able to use this at any point, and it's not like, with your sketchbook you have to flip over and start all over again if you want it. No, it's there for you. You committed some time, you created it, and now you can use it for light source, you can use it for perspective, you could use it for a better understanding in general. You could just have it be your model or guide to do things however. But I did find this to be a lot of fun, and it really does help you understand the face in all its dimensions, in 3 dimensions. Because at some point, when you're going to start constructing it, you're going to have to recognize there has to be symmetry. This cheekbone has to be out just as much as this cheekbone. You're going to have to see the lips, and the fact that it's right there for you and you're able to touch it as well, this other sensory experience comes into play. I think really gives you a more definitive understanding about the face. So there's multiple benefits to it. Really is worth the time. And as I mentioned, you will have a permanent model as long as you don't mash it or destroy it or whatever. You have a permanent model that you could use for all sorts of things. So highly encourage you guys to venture into this. And as something I mentioned before, a lot of artists use multiple mediums in order to achieve their goal. So just because you start working on clay doesn't mean you have to continue it forever. It's a reference. You're just same way as Gil Elfgren, for those of you who have been tuning into the special intro, the same way as he used photography for what he really loved to do, which was painting. So, he had a studio, he was taking photos as references, and then used them to paint from them. So you're doing the same, essentially you're doing the same thing. You're using another medium to create references for yourself, to work off of. Give it a shot. It's not too expensive. It is a lot of fun. Once you dive into it, at least that's what I found myself doing, is like once I got into it, it was hard for me to stop. Like I wanted to continue and build more and more. Anyways, so jumping back into this, that was an example here to show that you could use this box form from more than just the hands. You could use it for the body. You could use it for the entire body if you wanted. I personally like to use the cylinder shape. It's a quicker step, I believe. It's a little bit closer to actual body shape as opposed to a block. But both could be used. They do serve their benefit for multiple reasons, especially when it comes to perspective as well. I think the box or block forms really help with that. They pose a lending hand. And speaking of hands, let's continue. So I'm going to do like a realistic version with the same approach, just to show you guys the transition, how you could go from block form eventually to actually constructing a very realistic looking hand. And then I'm just going to continue on. There's going to be lots of hand drawings to show you guys. So I'm going to start off the same way I did before by creating this piece of toast in perspective, keeping in mind multiple things, something I like to review often, keeping it light. Teaching yourself this good habit of keeping it light gives you lots of wiggle room when it comes to mistakes, when it comes to adjustments. So you want to teach yourself that. And plus, I think it really makes the process more pleasant, at least for me. It's a flowing sort of approach, as opposed to being really meticulous, holding the pencil really tight, pressing down on the paper. Like, I think all those things create a certain atmosphere of rigidness. You know, you feel really uptight about everything, because you're trying to nail down all the lines and so on. This approach of keeping it light, it can feel kind of, it could give you a bit of insecurity because your lines aren't as definitive, and you don't feel as if though you have so much grip and control over the object, and it feels like it's going to just like slip away from your fingers. But I promise you, eventually, just like anything else, once you train yourself to get used to it, it's going to be your preference, as it is for me right now. Like, I think for me, I'm constantly keeping that and in the forefront of my memory whenever I sit down to draw. I always remind myself, like, hey, keep it light. Don't get into this rigid state. You know, you're eventually going to just fall into a rhythm with it, with that approach, which is what happened. So I'm forming them within these sections. As you guys saw, I divided it into 4 sections, and I am trying to form the fingers within each section, trying to stick to it, while keeping in mind that the fingers should not be longer than the palm. And that's something for you guys to test yourselves. Look at your own palm and measure the distance of your fingers. So I'm just going to use this real quick. I know the other one is here somewhere. No, it's like right there. Right, so, you know, I'm going to use this ruler here. It's great because it's see-through. I highly encourage you guys to get one of these. There's so many benefits to having a see-through ruler, especially when it comes to perspectives and trying to measure things out. Anyways, I'm not going to get too much into that. I'm going to use the middle finger because it is the longest finger to measure the distance. So for me, if it doesn't reach where the joint is, it's not as long. So that's like the entire palm basically. And even at that point, let's say not at the point of the joint, you could see that at the base of the finger all the way to its tip, it doesn't even come down to the bottom over here. So it shouldn't be as long as the palm. Like, it shouldn't be that long. Something to look out for. You know, you might not even need a measurement at some point. You could just naturally see that, it looks a little bit too long. So, yeah, just look out for that. That's an important detail that could break your drawing a little bit. Continuing to build from those sections. And if you guys have any questions about this, feel free to ask. You know, post it in chat, and I'll be able to give you guys better examples and explain it a little bit better. I'm not really sure if a lot of this is making it easier, but as I mentioned, I could explain it better once you guys ask me specifically. Now, I'm sure that in the first few tries, you're going to get some weird, wonky results. But don't give up on it, because again, this is it's not just about getting a good looking drawing, because you could always do that. You could spend a lot of time and dedicate yourself to like getting down every little detail until eventually you're shaped with or you're left with like a really good drawing, right? The real point of this exercise specifically is to get a really good understanding of the hand, and that requires figuring it out three-dimensionally. Now I'm drawing through it, meaning you could still see the other side of the palm, but that's going to be erased eventually. It's kind of like a bowling pin, I'm going to say, that you're attaching. And have that be the placeholder. You know, it doesn't necessarily have to be exact, but have that shape just like a sliced off kind of bowling pin, if you guys could see that. And then eventually, once you get everything down, you could start shaping it out better. So we're at this stage now, right, where the block form is really the block shape rather of the hand is pretty much done, I'm gonna say. And now I'm just gonna get into connecting everything and smoothing things out to actually resemble a hand. Now, in a lot of ways, well, you could see how it's going to start actually being beneficial. Like, there are certain lines that I don't even have to erase because they work so well for shading. And you guys are going to see as I lay on the shades, or lay on the shading rather, it's going to just naturally cover up a lot of this technical kind of drawing. Once I start connecting the joints more and really applying a lot of these shadows, it's going to start to take more of a natural feel. Adding things like the knuckles. And notice how all the shadows follow the same pattern. That shadow forms on the right side of each finger. As you guys could see, I'm connecting all this slowly, little by little, and it's starting to look more natural. Right, we were at this point, and look where we are now by just smoothing out a lot of these areas, you know, that have very sharp edges. Already made a huge difference. Filling in all the sides of the fingers with shadows, as I mentioned, slowly start to hide all these like technical lines. Isn't that cool? It's this awesome optical illusion that the drawing process enacts. Speaking of optical illusions, I encourage you guys to check out the highlights folder, where you guys can find all the special intros, including all of the Gil Elfgren parts. You know, another favorite painter of mine. Absolutely amazing work. Beautiful painter, beautiful subjects. And it's just a really fun stream, just talking about art and talking about illustrators and the history of illustration, and admiring some of the, a lot of the work from various artists with very different, varying styles. That's in that folder, but the reason I bring it up is if you guys check that out, which you could go to the video section in the Twitch channel and filter it based on collection. It'll open up folders for you where you will find the highlights folder, and over there's going to be a special intro about optical illusions, and it's this like spinning ballerina. It's a silhouette of a spinning ballerina, and what's amazing about it is that your eye basically perceives it depending on you, depending on your brain and what part of the brain is at the forefront. If it's the left side of the brain that's at the forefront of activity, or more so the right side of the brain. So depending on that, it's going to change how you see the silhouette spinning. So it's going to look like it's spinning clockwise or counterclockwise. It really depends on you, and you can use it to actually experiment with it and see for yourself. Like, have somebody invite a friend or a family member and have them take a look at it and tell you which way they're seeing it spin. And you're going to notice that the way you're seeing it is different than the way they're seeing it. Don't tell them how you're seeing it first. Let them tell you what they're seeing. And just judging off of how you're viewing it, you could see that they're seeing it differently from you. Since they don't know how you are viewing her spinning, you could be assured that it really does depend on the person and what part of their brain is active at the moment. Of course, we use both sides of our brain. It's just a matter of each person. Some people are more so active in that region of the brain. Others are active in another region of the brain more. It's like a percentage game. But yeah, it's a really fascinating optical illusion. And you could actually at some point control it. Like you're able to, like I'm able to see it and willfully change the direction however I feel like. If I want to see her spinning clockwise, I can look at it and have her spin clockwise. If I want to see it counterclockwise, at will, I could change it. So it is possible, and that's something you could also train yourself to do as well. So it's a really, really interesting thing. And in the beginning, I couldn't believe it. I actually took the animation apart to see if there's any point where you could see it spinning in a different direction. But if you were to actually break it down, all you're doing is you're breaking down a silhouette. So because there are no indicators on the figure to really visually give you cues of what part of her body is the left side or what part of the body is the right side. Since it's all just black, your mind kind of fills in the blanks, and it tells you, oh, okay, it's continuing to spin in this direction. It's one of the most fascinating things. I think the moment I saw it, it really changed my. It kind of blew my mind, literally. I didn't understand that our brain is kind of working against our conscience, or is trying to actually make sense of things when they're vague. I'm gonna say that's really what I think. The brain is just protecting our nervous system from really being overwhelmed by confusion, in a sense of not knowing, is it going to the left, is it going to the right? So it just compensates for the lack of information by telling you it's actually going to the right, but yeah, there's a difference. Lady Suja, welcome to the stream. Lady Suja says, oh, the one that changes directions depending on how you look at her. I think someone once mentioned you might be able to change it depending on what part of her body you focus on. Yeah, that's absolutely it. You could check that out. You could find that. I have it. I saved it specifically for you guys. It's in the highlights folder. If you go to the video section, you filter it based on collections, you'll see the highlight folder pop up, and once you click on it, you'll see that special stream. And you could just stare at that, and you'll be able to actually change the direction that she's spinning. And at some point, you could actually, if you do it enough times, which I got to a point, I was so fascinated by it. I was so mesmerized by that illusion that I spent some time on it. I got to a point where I could just make her go back and forth, without actually completing a full spin. Well, it's not that I got her to do it. I just got my brain to just perceive it in that direction. But how incredible is that? It's just it's such a simple thing, but it reveals so much about our perception, and what our vision kind of does. And I am pretty much convinced that it really does have something to do with, our nervous system and trying to keep us sane, basically, and saying, if this is confusing, this is what you're gonna see. It fills up the gap. I did actually read that our nervous system and our vision is taking in, I'm going to say, 8 billion bits of information. But don't quote me on that number exactly. I know it's very high. It's either 8 million or 8 billion. But we're basically incapable, our nervous system isn't able to handle that much information. It's kind of like an overload in a sense. So just it compresses, condenses, and simplifies things in order for our brain and our nervous system to be able to handle it. And I think that's also just an indication of something that happens with age as well, right? Like as we get older, we start to notice certain things that we didn't when we were younger, because our nervous system and our ability to handle more information starts to grow as we develop. Like our brain expands, and as a muscle, you exercise it, it gets stronger. So I really think it has something to do with that. It's just we're not able to process. So, and it's kind of interesting to think about, how much we're actually missing, how much that is kind of present around us, in the same light as like, we're not capable of seeing air. We're not capable of seeing gravity. We're not capable of seeing cell phone receptions, but that's all present. There is something that is beaming up from our phones up into the satellite, right? I mean, that's exactly how it works. It works off of a satellite. But we're visually not able to see that. But it doesn't mean that it's not there. It's not just, it's not like this complete disconnect between a cell phone and a satellite, that is just this like magical, non-existent sort of interaction between the two. It's very much, there's like, waves and basically like these beams basically that connect us. Sometimes I just think about that, like, how does it exactly work? We are in a room, so it's not like the beam is going out the window or out the window into the satellite. It actually, I believe, it travels through the buildings, right? Like there isn't like an exit door for the signal to go and travel up into the satellite. So basically, it just shoots up from all this matter, from all this solid matter that we're seeing in buildings or whatever else. It shoots up into the satellite. I mean, of course, there are certain things that interfere with it, and that's very much specific type of materials. But in general, most of us living in our apartments, in our houses, whatever, we're able to actually get reception. But yeah, just tying it back into our nervous system and how much we're able to see. There are all these things around us that we're really not able to recognize. So I'm wondering, aside from satellites, aside from gravity and all this other stuff that we've kind of discovered, understood, what else is around us just like that we're not recognizing, and how that's kind of playing on our behaviors and our feelings or emotions or whatever it is, our health, all those things. So it's kind of like a curious, interesting concept. What else is around us that we're incapable of recognizing. I got carried away. I didn't really spend that much time developing this hand here as an example, but it's pretty much done. I mean, there are certain lines here that once I erase, it really does give it more of a natural look as opposed to this right here. But this was really just to demonstrate how it doesn't have to be restricted to this. This may look intimidating after you complete it and you're like, well, how do I turn this into a real hand? It's just as simple as that. You start to fill in the shadows, and once you start filling the shadows and curving out these really really sharp edges and connecting all the joints together, just as simple as that, these little tweaks can transform it and start making it look more natural, on that topic of optical illusions, right? Okay, I'm gonna do another one here. just double check the time. There's still time. I could still do another one. Lady Suja says, and then even within the visual spectrum, there's still colors we as humans can't see, but other creatures would consider just normal. Yeah, that's another really, really fascinating thing. And even as humans, there's some research that shows that your culture that you're raised in determines or at least affects what colors you see. Huh. I never knew that. That shows that your culture that you're raised in determines or at least affects what colors you see. I gotta read about that. I never really thought about that. I mean, it is all subjective, right? I mean, the colors that we all recognize, like I could look at a green color or like a green apple, but the tone that I'm seeing, is it exactly the same tone as you are seeing? Like we could agree that it's green, but maybe the shade of it could be a little bit different for you as opposed to me and the next person and so on. So in that perspective, yeah, like, that is another really individualistic kind of experience as well. But I think you're talking about something a little bit more distinct, right? Like that the colors themselves, like what colors that people are seeing are completely different. It's not even a matter of shade. It's also interesting. I don't know if you were present for that stream, Lady Suja, but I was talking about another artist named Kandinsky who had synesthesia. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but for those of you who are tuning in and you've never heard of it, it's a condition where you're able to see colors in music. So like when somebody plays a C note, the person would see yellow emanating from that instrument, or a D note or whatever. All those notes have their own colors, and Kandinsky was one of them, and he ended up actually painting a lot of these paintings. They're abstract paintings using colors in like a symphony, basically. So if you would like hear a symphony, he would actually be able to paint a symphony. That's pretty amazing. I'm very curious to know, like, what that experience is like for that person. Like, is it really as literal as that? Like, you're able to actually see color? Because sound is everywhere, it's not just instruments. So like if a car is honking, or if there's like certain sort of ticking sound coming from a clock or even like a stop sign, do they see like colors emanating from all these things? Because that's so trippy. Like imagine every day you're constantly seeing like these colors moving around. It's a really interesting existence, a really interesting experience. What a life, right? Every day is this like incredible sort of reality that you're living in, and knowing that not everybody's really able to see it. So you're able to recognize how unique of an experience your existence is being in that state. I feel like they should do some sort of documentaries or something of that nature to get more people familiar with that. Lady Suja says, check out the Himba tribe color experience. I absolutely will. That's right up my alley. I'm totally curious about stuff like that. All right, let me see if I could start sketching the next one. This is gonna be a hand holding a ball. Lady Suja says, the world would be a very colorful place. I wonder what people's voices look like in that sense. Ooh, that's a good one too. Yeah. Every person, right? Every person has their own tone. And you kind of would see that's probably really trippy, like seeing somebody with like yellow coming out of their mouth or green or these weird colors. But yeah, that's still really fascinating as well. And probably it would change, right, according to like where, like it's not like it's always the same color. So I guess depending on their emotion, and it could be like a giveaway as well, right? If you're talking to somebody and they're frustrated, it probably changes their tone a little bit, and that emanates a different color. So you're kind of able to tell, despite what they say, how they're actually feeling, and that's pretty amazing, actually. Like that really. Well, it would really, like, I think, either help or be absolutely a nightmare to be around that person, because they're always able to know how you feel about everything. I don't know. I think that I think that would be a great opportunity personally for developing a healthy relationship, because then you could figure things out how they really are, as opposed to like guessing or whatever. But I think when it comes to a healthy relationship, it shouldn't be guessing, regardless of like cues or whatever. Like you shouldn't have to rely on cues. I think a mature relationship amongst adults, they have to just recognize how important it is to be honest and communicate with each other, to develop the relationship, to develop trust with each other, and that whole ordeal. But I guess up until you get there, having that ability would be pretty good. Like you could know which person is actually worth the time, because they're more honest with you, and they're the colors you're seeing actually connect with what they're saying about how they feel. That's a really good point, actually. I really wonder what the life of a synesthesiac is like, what their day-to-day is, and how they navigate through friendships and relationships and all that stuff. Trying to think like what other scenarios would be really interesting for it. I mean, city life is probably exhausting to somebody who has that, because there's like noise everywhere. And I think another interesting thing probably would be like they're able to communicate or understand animals better. Like they're able to, if a dog barks or a cat or whatever, they make their noises, you're probably able to associate that eventually, and that's like a language right there. And sometimes I actually wonder if cats are synesthesiacs, because they're always so reactionary towards sounds, or they're just like kind of spaced. It looks like they're spaced out a bit. They stare out so much, and they're so content in just being in one place at all times. It's like I wonder if their vision is just very very unique and vivid. Maybe that's why they have like such a high high sensitivity and reaction. Like they're always in like a heightened state. And it's kind of that's something that's hard to determine. It's not like we can really speak to them and then tell you like, yeah, you know, this is what our vision is like. Whereas like a synesthesia could actually communicate and explain like what they're seeing. And now like with the technology that we have, you know, with especially with I'm gonna say with like 3D those 3D devices like the Oculus or whatever, I think that people are like, you could describe, right, like a synesthesia could describe their experience, and it could be emulated with those headsets, and people could actually like put them on and based on the description start seeing things, and so on and so forth. So that's an interesting thought. So I didn't really talk much about it, but it's just a very similar process. And again, I started out by shaping out the toast, aka the palm, in perspective. You know, that's really, as I mentioned, that's like one of the main benefits of it, is that by using these basic shapes, it allows you to understand things in foreshortened perspective. I think everybody, I'm gonna have to end the stream here. Let me just confirm that. Yeah, it's coming close. I am gonna take a quick break and get ready for the next stream, which is gonna be coloring comics. So speaking of colors, I'm gonna be doing India inks, and I'm gonna be continuing working on this beautiful comic book. That's, oh man, I can see it ripping little areas. Frustrating, but I do have a digital copy of this, so I could still enjoy it. I just wish, I don't know, I wish these were more in print, so I could always get another copy if this starts to really come apart, because you can see it's like super yellow. Like, look at that, look at the difference. It's very brittle, like the corners are coming off. Anyways, I'm going to be continuing on from beautiful work of John Buscema, something that I have been doing in my previous sketchbook. So as you guys could see here, I've been doing some watercolors, but now I'm using India inks, and I'm gonna continue with that. So stick around, everybody. I'm going to be back in 5 minutes. For those of you who can't, remember to hit the like and subscribe button. They both help the stream grow. They're greatly appreciated by me, of course. And thanks for tuning in. I'll see you guys in a few. Hello, viewers and artists and all alike, to the Art Lounge Alley. This is Coloring Comics, and this is what I'm going to be working with tonight. I'm probably going to do a little bit more work here before I move on to the next panel. And to be honest, maybe I'm going to do a little bit more work on his skin color because I feel like it's blotchy. You know, there's certain areas that have a lot. There's areas that don't have much. So I might just take a little bit of time to improve on that, to make it look better. And then I'm going to move on. Let's see where the next one is. Ooh, that's... It might be a bit of an issue. I might end up having to just ink because I'm pretty much done with most of them. Nope, still plenty to go. Still got 3 more, and then I have to start inking. Which kind of brings it up to another topic, and I think this is something that I've been thinking about recently, because this brush pen that I have is posing a bit of a problem. You know, I have to wash it often. It dries up, you know, it gets pretty gunky. And then when I wash it, it becomes watered down. And then having to refill it, you know, opening this up, doing all that work to refill it, as opposed to just using a brush. You know, just using one of these, dipping it in some ink, and working with the brush and get better at it, which also is going to help with coloring as well. It's going to improve my my precision for colors. Just kind of turning back to a more simple approach, because recently I acquired an awesome book. Called John Buscema, the Michelangelo of comics, and it's about like close to 200 pages, just talking about John Buscema, talking about people's experiences with him and his development. It's absolutely amazing. I'm so happy I got a copy of it. I encourage you guys to get one as well if you're a fan. Even if you're not, it's still a really interesting insight into the whole process for the artist that they go through, and you get to see some beautiful work, like some originals, some inked versions, and just talking about let me start adding these colors as I'm talking to you guys about it. Yeah, just, you know, talking about that, seeing John Buscema do some inking. You know, there's been videos that recently surfaced that documented him inking, drawing and inking, and I was completely blown away. I was so happy to know that there is records of him doing that kind of stuff, you know, way before Instagram and all this stuff came about. But yeah, it just shows him using a regular brush like this, and he's just like quickly, you know, inking away all these different sections, making these very thin, meticulous lines using a brush, just a regular brush, nothing fancy. And I thought, you know, why not? If he could do that, you know, if it's possible to actually do that, just do it. You know, it's more simple in a lot of ways. It's a lot easier to just clean up this little brush tip here, as opposed to having to do this whole like shebang. This I think is probably more useful for probably like demonstrations or something, you know, when you're doing it on a board and you can't hold like a little thing of ink in your hand. You just have the ink inside and you could just continuously work on something. But if you're in a table setting, you know, where you have space to actually have inks and such, why not? You know, why not just use a regular brush pen, or a regular brush, that is. And it kind of like falls into like what I want to do anyways, you know, just disconnect from all sorts of stuff that's really tech oriented, you know, getting caught into this like endless upgrades and you know, material this and that and the other, and just kind of rely on simplified things and focus on what it's really meant for, is like creating and the process of painting and the process of drawing. Having the focus be on that as opposed to, you know, equipment and all that other stuff. There's a point, I think there's just like a fine line. You know, not to say that material isn't important, because it absolutely is. As I mentioned, when it comes to sketchbooks, right, the kind of paper, God, I'm giving myself a heart attack shaking it over this comic. It does play a certain role, like the sketchbook and the kind of paper that you're using, you know, if it's thick or thin, depending if you're using wet medium, you know, as you see me using all this stuff like watercolor and India inks and such. It does play an important role, but at some point it just crosses over into capitalistic endeavor of like brainwashing you to just consume more and more stuff, you know, where it's just like, oh, now it's more simple. We got things like Go-Gurt where you can't even eat a yogurt, it has to be on the go, you know, like that sort of bullshit. Rather than giving people actually humane hours where they don't have to have a Go-Gurt, they're trying to make it fun for you to like run to your job to work your entire day there, you know, as opposed to like, yeah, we're gonna give you more hours of the day so you're happy and that you're willing to come in and do good work. Like now, modern day capitalism is like, we don't even care whether you're happy or not, we just want capital. Which is to say how sociopathic things have gotten. You know, it's this like intolerance for anything other than money. And I think, again, this is something that I talk about very frequently. It's a sickness. It's a disorder, and people are just enabling it more and more by not pushing back. So yeah, just the idea of like having to buy more and more stuff, like it just crosses over to just being, you know, excessive. But yeah, if back in the day they were able to do all this stuff using a brush pen and all this like simple material, then that's where I'm gonna be working towards myself. So I'm gonna. Maybe I should just start off with the skin, which is like a little bit of brown. Sorry, it's the wire, I guess, on the mic. It's getting a little wonky. Yeah, I'm gonna get a little brown there. It looks like there's some brown, yellow, and a little bit of red. And I forget that actually it works well with, well, India inks don't seem to be as, I'm gonna say as thick. Like I'm able to actually just go over these black lines and they're still visible. Now, it could be because I have a little bit of water still on the brush from cleaning it. Gonna make some more of this so I don't have to keep dipping it back. too brown. Let's see if we water it down a little bit. Say maybe a little yellow. I'm not too opposed to it because I think the previous color was well dried, so and a little bit of water actually helps. Like as you saw, the initial drop of color, or brushstroke rather, was pretty dark or vibrant, but adding a little bit of water, now I am risking warping the paper a little bit, but I think that because I have another layer underneath it, uh-oh, I'm starting to add my own element into this, which I'm not really interested in doing right now. I am more interested in getting it down as I see it. I don't want his lips to be any different in color, but it looks like I'm gonna have to darken up other areas. But yeah, just adding a hint of water, like just a tiny droplet, allows the colors to be a little bit more diluted and more transparent, which isn't something that I saw with watercolor. Like watercolor has a little bit more of a pasty quality to it, so even if you add water, it still will cover up the black lines and the black details. Which was driving me a bit nuts, just a little bit, because it just left so many areas with these like white marks, borders, because I was trying to like paint around them to keep the detail around, but with this little trick, I'm actually able to retain some color in those details. Yeah, see, like I put in a lot of, well, I put like multiple colors on the forehead. So it's like this section right here is really, I don't know, it kind of looks like a scab on his head or something. I put like too thick of a layer on there. And it feels even more glossy, I'm gonna say, or more slippery as I'm adding these colors. There's a part of me that's really enjoying the difference, though, like that the colors kind of vary a little bit. I think that's my part. That's part of me that really enjoys Dean Cornwell's paintings as well. For those of you who are new, I've been doing a special stream talking about Gil Elfgren, who was an amazing painter. He was a huge influence on a lot of illustrators, and I've been doing a special stream talking about his influences, people who have influenced him, and Dean Cornwell is one of them. In fact, Dean Cornwell was such a well-renowned artist and painter that a lot of other artists, including John Buscema, were familiar with and actually liked his work. This wire is very sensitive all of a sudden. Okay, let's see now. There's a part of me that wants to correct this, even though it does look good, and it would actually have more color, like the lips would have a little bit more color, I still wanna nail it and be as consistent to the original as possible. Now my colors are a little bit more brown than the original. The original seems to have kind of like a yellowish, I'm gonna say, tint to it. So maybe I could pass another layer on top of all this. That's more accurate. Yeah, like I'm gonna say it's kind of closer to this. But Dean Cornwell's paintings just had like a multitude of colors within the skin color. And I think like Howard Pyle also had that in his paintings as well. It just shows such like great understanding of color mixture that you could, there's like a certain sophistication to their color mixing. That showed like proficiency with paints and mixing colors, as opposed to just using like one solid color and that's it. And I'm pretty sure, well, I'm 100% positive that Norman Rockwell did the same thing. Like if you look at his paintings and you look at the complexity of the colors within, like, let's say their hands, even just their hands, you could see a vast amount of different colors mixed in. And looking at all these painters, I'm actually like curious to know whether a contemporary artist, who I'm actually not sure if he's still around or not. His name is Sigmund Freud. not the psychologist, but I think it's his nephew or something. I have his book. Let me just grab it real quick, actually. Let me see if I have the book. I can bring it up as an example. Okay, I was wrong. It's Lucian Freud, but they are related. Sigmund Freud and Lucian Freud, they are related. But yeah, I think in his paintings, and I think more so his later work, tends to have that like color complexity. If you look at that, this one is very popular. Oh no, it was this one. This one was very popular. But yeah, there's like lots of different colors used in his paintings. It is explicit material, y'all, but you know, this is about art. So you guys should be mature about it. It's about the human body, it's understanding it. So yeah, you're gonna see some nudity. But not, I mean, this is more stylized, I think. I think Dean Cornwell really, and Norman Rockwell really highlight more of like what I'm talking about, the complexity of colors. Like this is more of like, I'm gonna say impressionism combined. Than it is. But you guys should keep an eye out for the special stream. I'm going to continue talking about them, talking about all these other artists as well. So I'm up to part 4. You guys can check out part 1 through 3 by heading over to the video section in the Twitch channel and filtering the videos based on collection. I'm just going to open up the folders for you, and in there you will find the highlights folder, which has all the special streams that I've had throughout the Art Lounge Alley ever since it launched. I believe it's been like 4 months now, actually. Yeah, and over there you'll find parts 1 to 3, where I talk about all these different artists and show you guys their beautiful work. I'm a little bit on the fence about Lucian Freud's paintings. I don't know. There's something about them. Like, it's great work. It's beautiful paintings, but I don't know. I guess I have to dig a little bit deeper within myself to like find out what is it that I like and don't like. I do enjoy it to some extent, but I think there's something like grotesque about his color use, or even just like his subject matters, or how he tries to portray them. I don't know. Or just like the vibe, you know, there's just like a certain level of, I'm gonna say, apathy there. Like they're kind of like all displaying a sense of like apathetic expression, whether it's their body language you know, the face expressions that they have on there, and maybe that's his thing, like that's what he's trying to have people recognize or see. And just that alone, I think, is, I guess, noteworthy. You know, whether it's invoking frustration, which is what I'm getting from it. So I guess in some ways it does have its, he does have a certain value to it. And it's not like it's not skilled or anything, like he doesn't have any skill or, you know, ability or a certain connection to people and their expressions and so on. Like, he definitely has that. He's able to really capture that well and portray that through his paintings, so I'm not against it. I don't know. It's definitely good art. Is he my favorite painter? No, I'm gonna say no. But I do like it, and I like it for that. I like it for the fact that it invokes that sort of reaction from me, and I start thinking about it, and then, you know, I get a little frustrated with the idea of like apathetic sort of existence or whatever, just being totally indifferent to anything and everything and just being bored with life, you know, that whole, like, come on. I think there's a certain level of pompousness to be bored with life. Like, there's so much going on, there's so much that can be done. There's so much to learn, and improve and grow and all that other stuff. For somebody to be apathetic about it, it's just, I don't know, something bratty about that. I don't enjoy. But that's how I feel about it, you know, that's actually what makes it a good painting, because it makes me think about that topic. It makes me form my opinion on it. And I encourage you guys to do that for yourselves as well. What's your opinion on it? Now, it could have been that he just captured a trajectory, you know, at a point, a period in time, but I'm going to say apathy has been around for a very, very long time, and it's not something that is a period, you know, as if though it goes away eventually. I think it just, probably it could be heightened by a certain time, you know, depending on what's going on politically or economically or whatever it is. It could probably spread more to people. But he could have just captured that moment, you know. It comes in waves, I'm gonna say. It comes and goes in waves. And there are periods where it comes back, where that sense of apathetic approach to existence comes back, and then it goes away, then it comes back, and so on and so forth. Alright, I think I did enough on this guy. I did cover up a lot of things I didn't like. I love that panel. I absolutely love the original one. I could still see a difference. There's like lots of differences between how Buscema laid it down. But it was a lot of fun just bringing it to life like that again. I'm gonna go on to the boot now. Of this guy right here. There's a little bit of work to be done. And I think that's what I was trying to do at the very beginning, I was like, why did I dip my pen? Why did I dip my brush in green? And now I recognize that. It's because his boot is green and yellow. More yellow than green. It's a little bit of that, but I think there's like a dab of brown in there too. It's a dab of brown. And I'm going to use a little bit of water to water it down. No, too green. Way too green. But a good experiment because like if I use a little bit of white, yeah, you see that how it turns the black detail milky, whereas if I just used the colors, the yellow and the green, there was no problem. The moment I add white into the game, it starts to take on this like pasty sort of texture, and detail is in danger, and I have to like go around everything. So there's like brown, yellow, and I already have some green on my brush, so maybe that's gonna do it. Kind of. Not really. I think I have to just continue to add a little bit of white. And I think the real solution is going to be for me to just have to come back with black ink, which is fine, because as I was talking about it, I am going to start practicing inking using a brush, not that brush pen that you guys have been witnessing me using. Nah, it still needs a little bit of brown there. Complicated. And I think a lot of the complication is, again, something that I was talking about before. And actually, the very first episode of Coloring Comics, where I give you guys examples of what they used to do back in the day, back in the 30s, to mass produce comics and how they colored them. So it's kind of like pointillism. What they did was they just brought colored dots next to each other to create the illusion. It seems to be the theme today. An optical illusion. When those colors are next to each other, they create a new color, a different type of color. So I'm kind of seeing a little bit of those, I guess. I'm like seeing a little bit of the red, the green, and the brown, and the yellow, how they're all combined together to create this sort of texture. I'm not like I guess I'm not like seeing that color as a whole. And my eyes like darting to these little details about it. I'm gonna say the color is like a warm green. And the belt is an interesting color. It's like there's like a little bit of red that I'm seeing there. I don't know. I might have to just like drop my expectation of getting it down exactly because it's a different technique. Since I'm seeing like all these other colors. Trying to see if I'm ready to move on to the next panel. If there's more stuff for me to correct here. And I see one. I mean, I think I just have to work a little bit more on these panels to get the colors right, because that's not right. It looks very much like the background, whereas his clothes are closer to like a yellow as opposed to a green. So let me see if I could do a little adjustment here. Let me see if I could change it around. If anything, this is closer than what it is now. I'll be honest, I am liking this music. This is a very interesting choice by Pretzel. Right on, Pretzel. This reminds me, actually, I think the reason why is because it reminds me of this very cool film. Let me say that again. It reminds me of a very cool film called Run Lola Run. It's like this German film. But very cool scenes. And the reason why I'm saying bet is because it's not in English, so you would have to it's a movie in subtitles, if you don't speak German. And I usually like watching it in subtitles because I don't like the dubbed versions. The voices are always off, or it's just not synced in with the lips, and it just takes me out of the experience. There's like obvious elements that just kind of break that experience of being in the scene with them. So if you guys do watch it, I encourage you guys to watch the original with no not dubbed, with subtitles. But very cool movie, very stylistic, and the music is really cool as well. Interesting concept. So I encourage you guys to check that out. All right, so what else I have to fix? I have to fix, well, I got a color in his hand and give him a skin tone. Give the hand a skin tone. Should kind of have already. Too orange. I think what really helps sometimes is adding a little bit of blue to give the skin some natural tone. Otherwise it's like too orange. And adding more white just makes them look pale. I'm gonna sit with that for a minute. Going to continue on this gentleman's face. Well, he's not a gentleman. He's everything other than that. He's a nut job. But I'm going to have to paint this nut job. And I'm going to paint his beard. A Viking. Something that John Buscema is excellent at drawing. In that book that I was mentioning earlier, John Buscema, the Michelangelo of comics, there's some examples of his sketchbooks. There's some, not examples, there's like pieces from his sketchbooks, and there are several where he does Vikings. And it looks so cool. And that's just like one of the many books that are available, actually. There's another one that's also really good. And I noticed that the price for them is ridiculous. I wonder if that's something new. Because I do remember looking these books up before, and I don't remember them costing $500. That's one that I don't own currently. Buscema, the Michelangelo of comics, was pretty pricey. But the other one that I mentioned, it's like $550 now. And it's a thick book. I did see some previews for it, so it's well worth it. There's some beautiful examples there, and you guys can check them out on YouTube, which I think is great, because first of all, you previewing it is not the same as owning it. owning it. You could always open it up. You could look at it. You could continuously feel inspired by it. It's yours to keep. Previewing it, I think, is incredibly useful because then people could see like what to expect. You know, it would suck to spend all that money and then just like open it up and it being totally the opposite of what you wanted. But anyways, there's like a YouTube video where a guy is like flipping through talking about these books. So if you guys are looking to purchase them, I would suggest getting inspired by looking, because they're all worth it. I mean, I looked through all of them. They're all great. If you're a fan of John Buscema, you're pretty much going to love all of them that are available, because they go into not only extensive detail about his work and give you guys like lots and lots and lots of images, but yeah, they give you good history as well, like things that aren't out on the internet for the public eye to see. All right, everybody, I am gonna have to wrap it up. You know, I'm probably gonna squeeze a little bit of black and do some corrections here and there. So I'm not gonna get where I'm getting at is I'm not gonna get to start a new panel today. It's just gonna be dedicated to like fixing little bits of this and that. But fret not, I will be back again tomorrow. And tomorrow I'm going to be streaming the project stream, which is you guys are going to get to see some, there's a lot of progress that's been made actually. It's coming closer and closer to being finished. I'm going to say it's like 80% finished now, maybe 85. I don't know. But definitely 80% finished. I've been doing a lot of color tweaking, doing a little bit of changes with line work. Pretty excited about it actually. And then Friday is going to be a special stream, and it's not going to be the continuation of Gil Elfgren. That's going to be next week. It's going to be a new special intro to celebrate the 100th stream of Figure Drawing Basics. So at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Friday, there's going to be a special intro. It's a short film. It's not as short as the films that I created. It's not 5 minutes. It's going to be a little bit more than that, but it's not going to be for the entire stream. I'll say that. It's going to be a lot of fun. I love this film. It's also going to be mature content, so it's NC-17. Gonna throw that out now for you guys, but it's a philosophical concept. It's beautiful animation, great work all around, great message. Yeah, I can't wait to watch it with you guys as well. And that's going to be Friday 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, so make sure you check back in then if you can't make it tomorrow, for a reminder. Well, anyways, thanks for tuning in, everybody. I hope you enjoyed the stream as much as I did. I had a blast talking about all this stuff, the previous stream and this stream. And if you guys enjoy this content, just make sure you remember to hit that like and subscribe button. They both are greatly appreciated. All right, everybody, I'll see you tomorrow, and enjoy the rest of your night.